Sometimes the waves, they keep on crashing in. Sometimes the rain, it never seems to end. I'll be alright, my friend, if you stay by my side. Sometimes our worries get the...
Good morning, everyone. It is actually the morning of Friday, the 4th of July. So happy 4th of July to all of my American friends. I am here fresh-faced and covered in cat hair. I don't know if you can see that because I wanted to go ahead and open this vlog because today I'm going to attempt the 24-hour reading challenge that is part of HRCYED. That is the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, round 2. I've talked about it on my channel a couple of times before, but there is a 24-hour reading challenge as part of this wherein you try to read as many books as possible during a 24-hour period, and so I'm going to attempt to vlog this experience. Now, I will say that this is probably going to be the last HRCYED content that I do publicly on my channel. I plan on making all other HRCYED content Patreon exclusives, but I see a lot of people doing these 24-hour reading challenges, and I thought it would be fun to try one myself, especially since it's for HRCYED. Now, my problem with 24-hour reading challenges isn't even necessarily that I have to stay up late well past my bedtime. I think my intention today is going to be to try to stay up until like 1 or 2, and that's pretty late for me. I try to be in bed by like 10 most days, and I'm already like feeling pretty tired, so we're gonna see how it goes. But my problem with 24-hour reading challenges in general is simply because I have to do them on the weekend, and my weekends are typically filled with other things, and today is no different. So even though I'm not leaving my house today, I have plenty of things that I have to do. My house is an absolute disaster, so I have to definitely give it a good clean. My husband and I are going to be doing like a big spread for 4th of July dinner, even though it's just the two of us, and we're gonna have like a movie night, so I have to prep some things for that this morning. Also, I have a bunch of little chores that I have to do. Also, most importantly as well, is I'm going to be using today for filming. I have a couple of things that I need to film so that I can get a jump start on that for the weekend because I've been feeling a little bit behind, and I'm afraid that if I wait until tomorrow to film that I'm not going to really be able to get ahead. So I'm going to have to film and at least start editing today as well. So we have a lot of things that we have to do, and my goal is trying to maybe alternate between things that I can listen to audiobooks for and things that I can't, and try to listen to as many short stories as possible. Now, obviously, I definitely want to be working smarter, not harder. I want to make sure that everything that I read today, for the most part, has an intention and can be used elsewhere, either in this challenge or other challenges that I'm doing. I am participating in our fantasy bingo, and for our fantasy bingo, we do have to read 5 short stories. I've already read 2 of the short stories, and so I'm planning on reading the other 3 today. So I have 3 short stories that have those speculative elements that I would need for our fantasy bingo. And I thought it would be fun because one of the spins that I did for HRCYED in my July TBR was to read around the world with regard to the Asia continent specifically. I thought that I would challenge myself to read the rest of the short stories with like Asian authors and Asian representation. So let me tell you a little bit about what we have on the docket that I would like to try to get to today if possible. If you can hear all the background noise, I apologize. My cats are going nuts, and then my husband is in his man cave listening to something very loudly. And now Nola has her chirp chirp. So she's doing zoomies and playing with her chirp chirp. So chaos as usual, my friends. But first we have a short story by Alexi Harrow. It's called A Spindle Splintered. I believe this is like a Sleeping Beauty retelling of some kind, and it's going to work for our fantasy bingo. I also have a speculative story by Sarah Penner called The Conjurer's Wife that I would like to use for our fantasy bingo, as well as What the Dead Know by Nevo. Now, I have been curious about Nevo. I've seen a lot about her writing, and so this would be a really great way to test that, and also she is a Vietnamese American, so we have that Asian representation. Jessie Kisu Tanto, I have a short story called The Reunion Dinner. Now, for the Around the World Asia prompt, I was actually going to be reading Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, but I decided not to go ahead and do that simply because, I don't know, I think that I could like it. A lot of people really love it, and I do love the El Cosamano Finley Donovan series, and I feel like Vera Wong is going to be very reminiscent of that. But since Vera Wong is not necessarily like immediately on my radar, and it's not something I would have planned to pick up soon otherwise, I was like, oh, you know what, I don't know if I want to dedicate the time to it, but this again would be a way for me to test Jessie Kisu Tanto's writing, so that's a priority. And the last one I have for the Asian representation is Sonali Dev's The Wedding Soup, and Sonali Dev, I believe, is Indian American. I do also have 2 short stories by Abby Jimenez that I haven't read yet called The Worst Wingman Ever and The Fall Risk, and if I were to read those 2 short stories, I would actually have read Abby Jimenez to 0. So these are all of the short stories that I have on the docket today. I really don't think I'm going to be getting to all of them just because I don't know how long they're going to take me to listen to with all of the other things that I have going on, but I do think I'm going to be able to get through a solid chunk of them, and I'm going to start with the 3 stories for our fantasy bingo and then move on from there. So we're we're gonna see what we can accomplish. The first step today is going to be getting ready to film, and then I have to prep the pasta salad for tonight's dinner. So we're gonna go ahead and get started, and I will check in when I actually have some reading updates for you.
Sometimes the hardest we try is not enough. All will be well as long as you stay by my side. You help me take this weight off my shoulders. Always run my way when I call you. You're the anchor I'm holding tight on to. You are my home away from home. I wonder if the sun will shine. Some days I pray for just a ray of light.
Okay, everyone, so it is quite a bit later. I would say it's about 11 o'clock, and I have officially finished my very first short story for this vlog, which was a Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. That is actually going to be the longest of the stories that we read today. It was about 3 hours total, so an hour and a half of actual listening time on 2x speed. I listened to this while I was getting ready for filming, and then while I was making the pasta salad, so all of that just about an hour and a half to complete. So I was able to listen to it complete all the way through. A Spindle Splintered is essentially a modern retelling of Sleeping Beauty. It is very much feminist. It is very much queer. It's very much about the characters in the story like taking back their narrative and taking back their life. So this follows our main character, Zinnia Gray. At the start of the story, she is turning 21 years old, and that's not necessarily a happy occasion because she has a fatal illness. It is called generalized Roseville malady. It's a fictional illness in this world, but I do believe that it is based on a real one, and essentially nobody who is afflicted with this ever lives past 22. She's known that she is not going to live past 22, and she's kind of accepted it, but at the same time, she's always wanted more time. She's always been obsessed with the Sleeping Beauty fairy tale. Like, she's practically studied it her whole life. She's read every single iteration of it. She even went to college to study folklore. And so for her 21st birthday, her best friend Shar actually throws her a Sleeping Beauty themed birthday party, complete with a tower and spindle. And when Zinnia goes to jokingly prick her finger on the spindle, she doesn't fall asleep. Rather, she falls through multiple versions of Sleeping Beauty's world. And in the world she lands in, she meets Princess Primrose. And she is the cursed heroine in this. She's about to fall into an enchanted sleep for 100 years. Zinnia ends up helping her avoid the spindle that is calling to her. And she decides that she's going to help Primrose and try to break the curse. And so that's what this is all about. It's trying to break their curse, and also Zinnia is trying to break her own curse as well. So ultimately, I thought that it was a really interesting, unique take on Sleeping Beauty, and she made it so Sleeping Beauty was able to take back her life, take back her narrative. So I actually really enjoyed this. Y'all know I am not a short story person, so doing all of these short stories throughout the day is definitely outside of my comfort zone, and I'm certainly not a retelling person. So this is not necessarily the most up my alley, but I have enjoyed Alex E. Harrow in the past. I love Starling House. Didn't love the 10,000 Doors of January as much, but I really want to explore more of Alex E. Harrow's writing, and this was a great way to do that. So we're off to a great start, and I'm looking forward to what I read next, whatever it is. I don't know, but I will let you know when I do.
Come take my hand and tell me you'll stay by my side. Some days I feel like I'm against
All right,
the
so
wall.
it has been a couple of hours since my last update. I have just been kind of like puttering around the house, getting some chores done, uploading all of the footage that I filmed this morning onto the computer so I could continue using my camera and all of that stuff. And while I was doing that, I listened to my next 2 short stories. By finishing both of these stories, I have officially completed the Our Fantasy Bingo prompt of reading 5 short stories. So I absolutely consider that a win. I absolutely love that. And like I said, I will be able to definitely use some of these short stories to also satisfy the Around the World Asia challenge as well, like the Nevo short story. So that one is set in 1899. It's going to be taking place at the Fog River Seminary, and it follows 2 con artists, Maurice and Vasile. They are going to be up on stage performing, doing acts, and they are performing like a seance as part of this act, and a blizzard comes through and it kind of traps everybody there. Now, typically Maurice only kind of fakes spiritual communication, like fakes communication with the other side. But while they are there at the seminary, she starts to have real supernatural encounters. She encounters like an actual spirit there who is there to kind of take vengeance on another person that is actually at the seminary, and it kind of makes her question what she knows about the spiritual world. This was very, very short. It was only like 23 minutes of listening time, and so because of that, I really don't feel like I got enough out of it. This is a short story that I wish I had gotten more of, just so I could fully understand what was happening and maybe enjoy it a little bit more. But because it was so quick and so abrupt, I don't really feel like it did too terribly much for me. So unfortunately, that was kind of a dud, but I really, really, really enjoyed The Conjurer by Sarah Penner. I really did. This is set in early 19th century Venice, and it follows our main character, Olivia Van Hoff, and she's the wife and assistant to a notable illusionist named Oscar Van Hoff. And it is said that prior to the start of the story, a year prior, Olivia had a terrible, terrible accident that caused her to lose her memory. And so she doesn't actually remember her life prior to marrying Oscar. And you're following her as they are doing their performances and their scripts and all of that stuff. And Olivia has never really understood Oscar's magic. Like, he is literally able to turn something into something else, conjure things out of thin air, and she's never been able to understand it. But within the story, she kind of discovers the truth behind his magic and also the truth behind her life and marriage. And this is really about her taking back her agency once she realizes the truth. And I had a great time with it. I also loved the brief nod to the sea witches on the Amalfi Coast, because that's a tie into the Amalfi Curse, which I absolutely loved. So this has actually definitely been my favorite short story so far. I've enjoyed this one the most out of the 3 that I have read. Now I think that I'm going to do a little bit of laundry and then try to finish the Lego set that I have been working on, and I will obviously be starting another short story while I do all of that. All right, so I am currently sitting here working on my little Lego cat. You can't see him because he is off screen, but I'm about to get him finished up. But before I did, I have already finished another 2 short stories, and I wanted to come on here and give you an update before I actually got into a third, because I didn't want to lose the details of the 2 that I just read. So the first one was called The Reunion Dinner by Jessie Kisutanto, and this is about a family who are celebrating Chinese New Year. And our main character, I have lost her first name already. I think her name was Josephine or something to that effect, but essentially Josephine is the one hosting the dinner, and she is waiting for her son Keith to arrive, and she is not expecting Keith to arrive with a fiance. She didn't even know he was dating anybody, that he even had a fiance. But it turns out other members of her family know this person, because she has done some pretty sketchy things to other members of this family, namely Josephine's niece. She was dating Josephine's niece, and then she ended up cheating with her niece's father. So essentially Josephine's brother-in-law, and kind of ruining that marriage. She was also the business partner to Josephine's nephew and ended up swindling him out of his business. And now she is dating Josephine's son, which is not great, right? And then all of a sudden, this woman ends up dead of mysterious circumstances. And so this is about them trying to figure out what actually happened to this woman, because almost every member of the family has a motive to kill this person. I had a great time with it. It was a really fun time. I can definitely see myself appreciating Vera Wong's Unsolicited Guide to Murderers. I may go ahead and read that in the future, because I really did have a good time with this short story. The next story I picked up was A Planned Occasion by Angie Kim, and I think that this was probably my least favorite of the stories that I've listened to so far. First of all, this was way heavier than I was expecting it to be. I was not expecting the story to be dealing with such difficult topics, but essentially it follows an elderly character, and I believe at the start of the story she is being moved into like a nursing home or something to that effect, and she is packing up and everything, and she encounters this picnic set or picnic basket or something that she was given as a wedding gift, and it was something they always intended to use over the course of their marriage, but they always wanted to use it for a special occasion, and nothing was ever right. There was never a right time, and now her husband has passed away, and so she's thinking about them and their marriage and how they met and their years together, and some of the difficult things that they went through, namely the miscarriage, the loss of their first pregnancy, and how very, very difficult it was, and how they were planning on using this picnic set for their 5th anniversary, which happened right after the miscarriage, and so it never got used and all of that stuff, and there was some additional special things attached to it. And she has decided that she wants to use this picnic set. You know, before she's leaving her home for good, she wants to use this picnic set, so she scrounges up a meal out of the scraps left in her kitchen, and she goes to this park and she has this picnic. So it's definitely supposed to have a level of depth and seriousness to it, and it definitely did. And like I said, that caught me off guard. I wasn't necessarily expecting it, but at the same time I also didn't really connect to it either, right? I wasn't very invested in what was happening. So unfortunately that one did not hit. I have since moved on to The Wedding Setup by Sonali Dev, and I'm only a couple of minutes in. This is actually on the longer side too for a short story. It's about 2 hours, so 1 hour of listening time, and what I'm gathering so far is this following our main character, and her mother is scheming to set her up at the wedding of her best friend, but whenever she thinks of love and romance, she can only think of like the one that got away, which was her brother's best friend. And I know we're going going to find out what happened in their past because our main character lost her brother tragically, and so that kind of separated her relationship with this gentleman. I'm enjoying it so far. I mean, as much as you can enjoy it within a few minutes, right? These short stories pack so much into such a little time, and so you really are only just getting your bearings by the time the story ends, and I think that's one of my main complaints about them. But for the most part, I've been really enjoying the short stories that I have been listening to. I don't know how many more short stories I'm going to get done today. Pretty soon we are going to be starting dinner and then watching a movie, and then it's going to be late, but of course I'm supposed to be staying up until like 2 o'clock in the morning, so I hopefully will be getting some more short stories done. But as the night gets later, I'm gonna start to fade, but I'm already pretty proud of what I've been able to accomplish today, so we'll see what more I can do.
Can't stand, no matter how hard you try. You're wearing down every bone, but only just getting by. In my mind, there's nothing else you can do. Your world is filled with color, and all you ever see is...
Good morning, everyone. As you can probably tell, it is the next day. I'm actually here on the floor of my bedroom because it's quiet. My husband is currently gaming with his best friend, and if I were out at my desk, you would be able to hear their entire conversation. So I decided to sneak away to finally close out this vlog because I actually did not really have an opportunity to do that last night. Shortly after my last update, my husband and I, we made our 4th of July little feast. We watched a movie, we walked the dogs, and then I came back to get back to it after cleaning up the after dinner mess. For the next several hours, we had fireworks going off in our neighborhood. And I'm kind of like a 4th of July Grinch when it comes to neighborhood fireworks. I don't like them at all. I'm definitely way more bothered by them than my animals are. And I really don't feel like it's necessary to disrupt the peace in your neighborhood, to potentially upset the animals in your neighborhood, the veterans in your neighborhood. I have definitely gotten a lot more mellow and chill about it over the past couple of years, but it's not something that I truly appreciate. But if I had come on here to do updates, you would have just heard loud pops in my video every few seconds or so, and I just wasn't going to deal with that. I think that the fireworks lasted until after maybe like 11 o'clock at night, so I figured that I would just come on here and close out the vlog. So I think in my last update I had mentioned that the next short story I was starting was The Wedding Setup by Sonali Dev. That follows our main character Aisha, and it is her best friend's wedding, and she just wants to really enjoy it and have a good time, but her mother kind of has other plans. Her mother really wants Aisha to settle down and start having kids, and so she has arranged for this very successful like gynecologist to be at the wedding to meet her daughter. But Aisha is really not looking for love at this point because she is still hung up on the boy that she was in love with many, many years ago named Emmett, and Emmett actually happened to be her brother's best friend. But unfortunately, Aisha's brother was killed tragically in an auto accident, and since that point, nothing has really been the same for her and her mom. She is really the only one her mom has left because her dad actually passed away several years prior, and so she kind of feels like she needs to be there for her mom and live the way that her mother wants her to live. And she kind of pushed Emmett away because her mother always said that she would disown Aisha if she ever dated Emmett. I don't know if that's purely because he was her brother's best friend or because he wasn't of their culture, like they are of the Indian culture, and I don't think Emmett is. So there was a lot going into that, and so she kind of pushed him away and said, I need you to leave. I can't be around you anymore. But now Emmett has returned for the same wedding, and you're following them reconnecting. And I thought that it was a really sweet story. It didn't really do anything for me emotionally. Like I didn't ever really connect to the short story at all, but I really enjoyed the premise of it. And I think that it could have been really strong if it had been fleshed out, like if we had been given more of the backstory of Emmett and Aisha's relationship and we had seen that progression to when her brother died. You know, like this is one of those things that really could have used an actual full-fledged story so that we could have connected to the relationship. But overall, I had a decent time with this, and I would say I would give it a 3 stars if I were rating these things. But I will say that my favorite short story that I read, and it was actually the last one that I read, was The Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez. I'm so glad that I decided to make this the last short story that I read for the night because I had such a great time with it. This is evidence of a short story done right that like actually makes you feel things within the story and makes you really want more from it because it was too short and you just want to spend more time with the characters, right? So this follows our main character, Holly. She is a hospice nurse, and unfortunately at this time, her patient is her beloved grandmother. And so she is going through a hard time. She is parked in her grandmother's apartment complex, and she comes out on Valentine's Day. There's a note on her windshield. It's obviously a love note to another person, and she thinks it's funny. She really doesn't think anything of it. But the next day she comes out to another note. And it's from the same person who wrote the first note. And he's like, I'm terribly sorry. My brother tasked me of putting this note on Valentine's Day on his girlfriend's car, and I apparently got the wrong car. And again, she thinks it's funny. And that actually kind of causes these two to strike up a bit of a communication, because she ends up returning the card to him. And they have this brief back and forth, especially after like he notices her tire is low and he fills up her tire and everything like that. And you're also following him, and you realize that he is actually the handyman in the apartment building where our main character lives. He lives there as well. And his brother lives in the same condominium complex as her grandmother. So they actually interact one day in the courtyard of that area. And at the very end, they actually meet in their own apartment complex, if I understand correctly. And I just thought it was really sweet and well done. You know, I was rooting for them. I wanted them to meet. I wanted them to get together. And I loved it. You know, for the most part, Abby Jimenez can almost do no wrong. There have been a couple of books that I haven't enjoyed as much as the others, but she is such a solid contemporary romance writer for me. And I'm so glad that I read this. But by the time I had finished Worst Wingman Ever, it was like 8:30 and I was just kind of ready to dive into something more substantial. And so ultimately I ended up starting the next book I had available to me on my July TBR, which was Undone by Karen Slaughter. That is the next book in the Will Trent series. And I ended up listening to 26% of that book last night while I was diamond painting. And based on my calculations, that is 141 pages. And at that point, I was definitely fading fast. I knew that there was not going to be much more that I was going to be able to do. So I went and I settled in bed and I tried to read a bit of the book that I had been reading before bed every night, which is The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. And I ended up getting through about 21 pages of that before I ultimately said, I can read no more. I need to go to sleep. And I ended up going to sleep after 1 a.m. So I did total all the pages of all the short stories and what I read in Undone and The Raven Scholar, and I ended up reading 453 pages. I know that might not seem like a lot, but considering I was doing so many other things throughout the day and I was really limited to the times that I could listen to the books, I'm very, very proud of what I was able to accomplish. And I would say I would want to try this challenge again on days when I'm maybe not so busy, but I just don't know when that would be, because the weekends are just as crammed for me as during the week, because I'm getting all the things done during the weekend that I didn't get done during the week, if that makes sense. Like, there is just never a day when I'm able to sit and dedicate to reading. And even if there was, like, my mind will not allow that to happen. I cannot just sit and concentrate on a book or an audiobook for hours, even if I'm doing other things. You know what I mean? Like, my brain just does not allow that to happen for whatever reason. I wish it did. I don't necessarily know if I were to do this challenge, if I would be any more successful than I was over this 24-hour period, but I'm very, very proud of what I was able to do. And on that note, my friends, I'm going to go ahead and close out this vlog. I hope that you enjoyed this 24-hour reading challenge. If you would like to see something like this again from me in the future, please let me know. If you are doing HRCYED and you've already done the 24-hour challenge, please let me know how it went for you. Or if you've made it to the end of this video and you are not feeling chatty, go ahead and leave me a sleepy emoji, because that is certainly what I'm going to be today. I actually ended up waking up at 9 o'clock today, which is wild. It has legitimately been probably like years and years and years since I naturally woke up at 9. I should probably go get started on my day since I've lost a couple of hours of the morning. But as always, if you like this video or if you just like me, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I typically post 2 videos a week, one on Wednesdays, one on Sundays, and I would love to connect with you in any of those future videos. But if you would prefer to connect with me outside of BookTube, you can always find links to my Goodreads, Instagram, Patreon, and YouTube memberships down below, along with any books talked about in the video. Until next time, y'all. Bye.